Today, we're diving into one of psychology's most powerful and, yeah, controversial ideas. We're calling this one Skinner's Box of Tricks. Let's just jump right in.
So, I want to start with a question that honestly sounds like it's straight out of a cartoon. Could a pigeon, yep, a regular old pigeon, actually guide a missile to a target? I mean, it sounds completely ridiculous, right?
Well, believe it or not, it's not ridiculous at all. Because during the height of World War II, one brilliant, kind of unconventional psychologist didn't just suggest this idea, he actually proved it could be done. And that right there sets the stage for our entire story.
So how on earth did this happen? Let's kick things off with the unbelievable but absolutely true story of America's secret pigeon weapon.
Okay, so the top secret military program was officially called Project Pigeon. And here's how it worked. Inside the nose cone of a missile, there'd be a small screen showing the target. The pigeons who were trained to recognize that target would peck at it, and those pecks would actually steer the missile. The most shocking part? It was incredibly accurate. The whole system worked. The real question is, how?
To understand the how, we really have to meet the mind behind this feathered guidance system. Which brings us to the architect of behavior himself.
His name was B.F. Skinner, and he was an absolute giant in 20th century psychology. He was a leader in a field called behaviorism, which basically doesn't care about your thoughts or feelings. It only cares about what you do, the observable, measurable actions.
This one sentence, this is the key to Skinner's entire life's work. Behavior is shaped by its consequences. Burn that phrase into your brain. It's the secret sauce behind everything, from a rat in a little box to a pigeon in a missile.
Now, the official, fancy name for his theory is operant conditioning. But put simply, it's just a way of learning where our actions are controlled by what happens right after we do them. You know, the consequences, the rewards or the punishments. That's what decides if we're ever going to do that thing again.
So, if consequences are what shape behavior, what tools do you have to actually do the shaping? Skinner said there are basically two, and it all boils down to one simple question. Do you want more of a behavior or less of it? So Skinner gave us two main tools. On one side, you've got reinforcement. That's any consequence that makes a behavior more likely to happen again. You know, think of a dog getting a treat for sitting. On the other side, you have punishment. That's any consequence that makes a behavior less likely, like a kid losing screen time for not doing their chores. It's that simple. Reinforcement increases behavior. Punishment decreases.
For right now, let's just focus on reinforcement, because this is really the engine behind teaching new and complicated skills, like, guiding a missile. The goal here is simple. You want to get an animal, or even a person, to do more of something.
Here is the classic example right from Skinner's lab. So picture a rat in a box with a lever. At first, it's just wandering around doing rat stuff. But then, totally by accident, it bumps the lever, and a food pellet drops into the box. So what do you think happens next? The rat starts pressing that lever over and over and over again. The food pellet is the reinforcement for pressing the lever. And it works the exact same way with people. A student does their homework, they get a good grade. That good grade is a powerful reinforcer, making it way more likely they'll do their homework next time. You see, we are all living inside our own little Skinner boxes all the time.
Okay, so rewarding a simple action like pressing a lever, that's pretty straightforward. But how do you get from that to something as ridiculously complex as a pigeon steering a missile? Well, you do it step by step.
Skinner called this whole process shaping, and it is such a clever idea. You don't just sit around and wait for the perfect, final behavior to happen by chance. No way. Instead, you reward successive approximations, which is just a fancy way of saying you reward any little step that gets closer and closer to the final goal.
Let's go back to our rat to see how this works. You wouldn't just wait for it to press the lever. No, first you'd give it a food pellet just for turning toward the lever. Then, once it's doing that all the time, you only give a pellet when it moves toward it. Then, only when it touches it. And finally, only when it actually presses the lever. See what you did? You've built or shaped a complex behavior out of tiny, rewarded steps. All right, now that we have the core ideas down, let's pull it all together. Let's see how these concepts from some old-school psychology lab are actually actively shaping your world right now today. So what's the big takeaway here? It's that so much of our learning is driven by consequences. It's why social media apps use likes, those are little reinforcers to keep you posting. It's why video games give you achievements to shape how you play. Skinner was all about observable behavior, and today, tech companies are obsessively measuring our every click and tap. It all comes back to the exact same principle that guided those pigeons. Behavior can be shaped piece by piece, using reinforcement to steer it toward a goal. And that kind of leaves us with one last thought. Think about the notifications on your phone, the grades you work for, or even just a simple thank you from a friend. Now that you get the theory, how are all the little rewards and consequences in your own life shaping what you do every single day?